The morning was quiet, the kind of silence that wrapped the world before the sun fully woke. Birds had not yet begun to sing, the air was cool, and the small village still slept under its blanket of mist. But one boy, the son of a human farmer, was already awake, his eyes half closed but his mind restless. He had woken not because of a dream or noise, but because something unusual had caught his sight from the window. Out there at the edge of the trees stood a creature. It was unlike any animal the boy had ever seen before. Its body glowed faintly, as if its skin carried the light of distant stars. It had the shape of a beast, but the eyes of something more, intelligent and sharp. For a long moment, the boy thought he was still dreaming. But when the creature blinked slowly, its gaze locked with his, he felt a chill run down his back. The boy's father often warned him, "Never follow what you do not understand." But curiosity in children is stronger than fear. The boy felt his heart beating faster, his young mind whispering that this was no ordinary animal. He slipped quietly out of bed, careful not to wake his family, and stepped outside barefoot. The ground was damp with dew. The air carried the smell of earth and pine. The creature did not move away when he approached. It only tilted its head as if waiting. For a moment the boy hesitated, his father's warnings echoing again in his mind. But then the creature turned and began walking slowly into the forest. It did not run, did not hide, it walked with grace as if leading him somewhere. The boy glanced back at his house, still dark and quiet. He took a deep breath and followed. The forest in the early morning was a strange world. Shadows stretched between the trees, shapes looked alive. Every step the boy took seemed louder than it should have been, but the creature moved silently, its glowing body making the darkness less frightening. The boy tried to stay close, afraid that if he lost sight of it, the forest would swallow him whole. The deeper they went, the stranger things became. He noticed marks on the trees, faint glowing lines that shimmered like ink under moonlight. At first he thought they were scratches, but then he realized they were symbols. The same kind of writing he had seen once on a broken piece of alien metal his father kept hidden. His father had called it dangerous, a relic of the war long past. Now here it was glowing in the forest, guiding him. The boy's breath caught in his throat, his curiosity burning brighter than his fear. The creature stopped once in a while. Looking back at him, its eyes seemed to ask, "Are you brave enough to continue?" The boy swallowed hard and nodded even though no words were spoken. He did not know why, but he felt this animal wanted him, and only him to follow. As they moved further, the forest grew denser. The mist turned thicker, and strange sounds filled the air. Rustles, whispers, the snapping of branches. The boy felt he was not alone, that other eyes were watching from the shadows. His skin prickled and his heart pounded, but the glowing animal walked calmly, and that gave him courage. Suddenly the creature stopped at a clearing. The boy almost stumbled into it. The clearing was strange, empty of trees but filled with stones arranged in a circle. Each stone bore the same glowing symbols he had seen on the trees. The air inside the circle felt heavy, like the breath of something ancient. The boy froze, his instincts screaming that he should not be here. Yet his curiosity held him in place. The animal stepped into the circle, its body glowing brighter now. It turned to face him, and for the first time, it made a sound, a low hum, almost like a song, filled the air. The stones lit up one by one, as if answering the creature's call. The boy gasped, his mouth dry, his legs trembling. This was no ordinary animal. It was something far greater, something connected to powers humans had long forgotten. The boy's breath grew shallow, his chest tight with fear and wonder. The creature's glowing eyes locked on his once more, and in that silence the boy understood a truth he could not explain. This animal had chosen him, and the path he had stepped onto could never be undone. He wanted to run back to his home, hide under his blanket and pretend this morning had never happened. But he also wanted to see more, to know what lay beyond this mystery. The creature turned again, stepping out of the circle, heading deeper. Into the forest, the boy, though afraid, followed once more, for something inside told him that this journey would change his life forever. The forest seemed endless, each step pulling the boy deeper into its secrets. The strange animal walked, ahead glowing faintly, its body a moving lantern against the thick morning mist. The boy's bare feet pressed against damp soil, his breath quick and shallow, his mind torn between fear and curiosity. The creature was not wandering like a normal beast. It moved with purpose, choosing every turn carefully. The boy noticed the way its head lifted, its ears twitching as if listening to sounds he could not hear. It walked as if it knew this land better than anyone, and the boy realized he was no longer in the part of the forest he knew. These were deeper woods, darker places his father had warned never to enter. The boy's eyes shifted to the trees around him, and that was when he noticed the markings. Again, strange glowing lines carved into bark, symbols that shimmered faintly like dying embers. At first he thought they were random scratches, but the more he looked, the more patterns he saw. Circles, lines, and shapes that repeated as if telling a story or showing a map. The boy's chest tightened as he remembered the broken alien relic hidden in his father's chest at home. The symbols looked the same language of the visitors from the stars. He reached out and touched one of the glowing marks. To his shock, the symbol pulsed under his fingers, faint warmth spreading into his hand. He yanked his hand back in fear, but the glow remained steady, as if welcoming his touch. The animal stopped and looked back at him, its glowing eyes sharp, almost questioning. The boy shivered, realizing the creature wanted him to notice these signs. He whispered softly to himself, "You're not leading me by accident, are you?" The animal tilted its head but gave no answer, only turned and walked on. The boy swallowed hard and followed, his heart beating faster. The deeper they went, the more markings appeared. On rocks, on fallen logs, even faintly on the ground, as if burned into the soil. Each seemed to glow brighter as the creature passed. It was as if the forest itself was waking, guiding him somewhere beyond human eyes. But with every step forward, the boy felt a heavy weight pressing against his chest. The silence of the forest was no longer calm, it was tense. He could hear things, rustles, faint movements, whispers that seemed to rise from the trees. Shadows shifted in the corners of his vision, but when he looked, there was nothing. Still, he could not shake the feeling that they were being watched. At one point he heard a branch snap behind him. He spun around, his heart racing, but there was no one there. The mist curled thickly, hiding whatever lurked in the distance. The boy wanted to turn back, but the creature stood calmly, waiting, its glowing body steady, as if it feared nothing. That gave him courage, and he forced himself to keep walking. The forest path twisted, climbing slowly uphill. The boy's legs ached, but he pressed on, his eyes locked on the creature's glow. As he walked, he thought about his father's warnings. Stories of alien ruins buried deep in the world, relics left after wars no one spoke of. Humans were told never to touch them, never to seek them, because secrets always carried danger. Yet here he was, being led directly into the heart of one. The boy paused when he saw something new. On the ground ahead lay large, strange footprints pressed into the soil. They were too big for any animal he knew, wider than his father's boots, and clawed at the ends, fresh, as if made only hours ago. He crouched down, his fingers brushing the edges of the prints. The soil was still damp and loose where the claws had dug deep. Whatever made these tracks was still close. The animal gave a low hum, its fur glowing brighter. It stepped past the tracks without hesitation, urging him to follow. The boy's chest tightened, but he obeyed. Each step forward felt heavier, each shadow thicker. He could not shake the thought that something monstrous was near. The forest grew quieter, too quiet. Even the insects had gone silent, and the air felt heavier with every breath. The boy looked ahead and noticed the trees thinning. Beyond them lay the mouth of a cave, wide and dark, like the open jaws of a beast. Symbols glowed along the rocks around the entrance, brighter than any he had seen so far. The animal stopped at the edge, waiting, its eyes glowing in the mist. The boy stood frozen, his legs trembling. Every instinct screamed at him to run, but his curiosity chained him to the spot. He stared at the cave, then at the glowing animal. It had brought him here on purpose, but why? What could be hiding inside that darkness? The boy's breath quickened, his fingers curling into fists at his sides. He took one hesitant step forward, then another. The cave's air felt colder, sharper, as if it had been untouched for ages. The glowing animal let out another low hum, almost like encouragement. The boy's heart pounded, knowing this was the beginning of something he could never walk away from. The cave loomed before the boy like a giant mouth, dark and silent. Its jagged rocks formed sharp teeth, and mist curled around the entrance as though the forest itself breathed fear into it. The glowing animal stopped just outside, its light casting faint patterns across the stones. The boy stood frozen, his young body trembling, yet his eyes could not look away. Every instinct told him to run back to the safety of home. But something inside pulled him forward stronger than fear. He had followed this strange creature all morning, and now it had brought him here. To turn back now felt impossible, like stepping away from a secret that wanted to be known. The boy took a slow step closer, his feet crunching the gravel at the entrance. The air that poured from the cave was cold, sharper than the morning breeze, carrying a metallic scent. It smelled like blood and old stone. The boy swallowed hard, his throat dry, his heartbeat loud in his ears. He glanced at the glowing animal, which stood still, its eyes fixed on him. It gave no sound, no push, but its gaze seemed to say, "You must enter." The boy shivered, then clenched his fists, and with one more deep breath, he stepped inside. The cave swallowed him whole. Light from the entrance faded behind him, replaced by shadows that pressed against every surface. But the glowing animal followed, its faint light spreading across the walls. The boy gasped as he saw the carvings. The walls were covered in symbols, carved deep into the stone. They glowed faintly, pulsing like living veins of light. Some showed strange figures, tall beings with slender limbs. Others showed humans and beasts, standing side by side. One carving made the boy pause. It showed a boy, small like him, standing with a glowing creature by his side. His heart raced. Was this some kind of prophecy, or was it coincidence? The deeper they went, the louder the silence seemed to grow. Every drip of water echoed like thunder. Every crunch of gravel under his feet sounded like a roar. The boy's skin prickled, his senses screaming that he was not alone. The tunnel bent sharply, opening into a larger chamber. The ceiling rose high, vanishing into shadows. The air felt heavy, thick with a presence he could not name. The boy's eyes widened as the animal's glow spread across the floor. There in the center of the chamber lay a structure, a cage, forged from metal that shimmered like liquid moonlight. Its bars twisted with designs that matched the glowing symbols. The boy's breath caught in his chest as he stepped closer. Inside, the cage was a figure, small and frail. At first he thought it was another animal, but then the figure lifted its head. Two eyes, dim but alive, stared at him through the bars. The boy froze, realizing it was no animal, but a child. An alien. Child weak and trembling, its wrists bound with glowing chains. The alien's skin shimmered faintly, not with fur but with a smooth, strange glow of its own. Its lips moved, but no sound came, only a dry whisper. The boy stepped closer, pressing his hands against the bars. The alien child's eyes widened, full of pain and fear, but also hope. The glowing animal walked forward, lowering itself beside the cage. It gave a soft hum, the same song-like sound as before. The alien child lifted its head higher, its lips trembling as if trying to respond. The boy stared in shock, realizing the creature had brought him here not for itself, but for this prisoner. His hands shook as he gripped the cold metal. The bars hummed faintly under his touch, alive with strange energy. He pulled, but they did not move. The alien child weakly lifted its hand, pointing toward a symbol carved at the base of the cage. The boy looked closer, seeing the mark glow faintly brighter. He hesitated, then pressed his palm against it. At once, the entire cage lit up, the chains rattling violently. The boy stumbled back, his heart racing. The alien child cried out softly, its voice weak but real. The glowing animal rose, its body blazing like fire, the boy's fear mixed with determination. He knew now. This was not an accident. The animal had chosen him, guided him, because only he could unlock this secret, but why him? He was only a farmer's son, not a soldier, not a hero. The ground shook faintly, a deep rumble rolling through the cave. Dust fell from the ceiling. Rocks shifted. The boy's head snapped toward the shadows, his heart skipping a beat. From deeper within the cave, another sound echoed. Heavy footsteps, slow and deliberate, approaching. The alien child's eyes filled with terror, its lips forming one word. Run! The boy's breath caught in his throat. Something was coming. Something that belonged to this place. And he knew if he stayed, he would soon learn what monster kept the child locked inside that cage. The boy's breath quickened as the sound of footsteps echoed deeper in the cave. Each step was heavy, shaking the ground, dust falling from the ceiling like sand from an hourglass. The glowing animal stiffened, its fur blazing brighter, standing between the boy and the approaching danger. The alien child inside the cage trembled, its weak voice breaking as it whispered again. Run! But the boy did not run. Something inside him refused to leave the child behind. He tightened his fists, his eyes locked on the glowing chains that bound the prisoner. If he fled now, the child would remain here, forgotten forever, and that thought burned his heart. The boy stepped closer to the cage, ignoring the tremors that shook the ground. The alien child's wide eyes followed him, a mixture of hope and fear. Don't be afraid, the boy whispered, his voice shaking as much as his hands. I'll find a way. The glowing animal let out a sharp hum, low and warning. Its gaze darted toward the shadows where the sound grew louder. Something was approaching, something massive, but the creature did not move away. It stood its ground like a shield. The boy's eyes fell back on the strange symbol near the cage's base. When he touched it before, the bars had come alive. Now he pressed his palm against it again, harder, his fingers tracing the glowing lines. This time the cage responded stronger, humming with energy, the chains rattling violently. The alien child gasped, its weak arms pulling against the glowing bonds. Sparks of light ran across the metal as if the boy's touch had awakened something ancient. But the footsteps were closer now. The sound so loud it felt like a drum inside the boy's chest. The boy's breath caught as a shape appeared from the darkness. It was not human. A towering figure stepped into the chamber, its skin dark and plated like armor. Its eyes glowed faint red, its long arms ending in claws sharp as blades. It was no ordinary guard. It was a warden, left to watch this place. The boy froze, fear clawing at his chest. He was too small, too weak to fight something like this. The warden's gaze fell on him, and it let out a growl that shook the walls. The glowing animal stepped forward, baring its teeth, its body blazing like fire. The two locked eyes, predator against protector. The cave filled with their hums and growls. The boy's knees shook, but he refused to step back. The alien child inside the cage cried out, desperate. Its voice cracked as it shouted something, in a language the boy did not know, but the meaning was clear. It was begging him not to leave. The boy's chest tightened, his fear giving way to stubborn courage. With trembling hands, he pressed both palms against the glowing symbol. Light exploded from the base of the cage, blinding for a moment. The chains shattered, breaking into sparks of energy that dissolved into the air. The alien child collapsed to the ground, free at last. The warden roared, its voice shaking the stone walls. It lunged forward, claws slashing toward the boy. But the glowing animal leaped, intercepting the strike. Claws and light clashed in the chamber, sparks scattering. The boy grabbed the alien child, pulling it out of the cage with all his strength. The child was weak, trembling, its body too light in his arms, but it clung to him, whispering words he could not understand. The boy's breath came fast, his mind screaming to run. The battle between beast and warden filled the chamber with deafening sound. The glowing animal fought fiercely, its body shining brighter with each strike, but the warden was powerful, its armored body hard as stone. Each clash shook the chamber, each strike echoed like thunder. The boy knew the animal could not hold forever. He turned toward the tunnel they had entered from. Hold on, he whispered to the alien child, his legs moving before his mind. The ground shook as the battle raged behind them. But he did not stop. Every step felt heavy, every shadow seemed alive, but he forced himself forward. The alien child coughed weakly against his chest, its voice barely above a whisper. It said one word, broken and soft. Friend? The boy's throat tightened, his eyes stinging. He did not know why this mattered so much, but in that moment he swore to protect the child no matter what. Behind him, the sound of the fight grew louder. The warden roared in fury, the glowing animal snarled in defiance. The boy looked back once and saw the animal, its body blazing like a star, throwing itself again and again at the towering monster. It was buying him time, sacrificing itself for him and the alien child. Tears blurred his vision, but he kept running. The tunnel twisted, the air grew colder, the mist thicker. The alien child trembled in his arms, its weak fingers clutching his shirt as though holding on to life itself. The boy whispered again, "I've got you. I won't let them take you again." Finally, the faint light of the cave's entrance appeared ahead. Hope flared in his chest, but the rumble of battle behind reminded him. This was not over. Something bigger was waiting outside. Something even the glowing animal might not be able to protect them from. The boy's heart pounded as he stepped out into the morning light. The forest around the cave seemed different now, heavier, alive with unseen eyes. He realized the moment he freed the prisoner, everything changed. He was no longer just a farmer's son. He was part of something far greater, and the world would never be the same. The boy stumbled into the forest light, clutching the weak alien child in his arms. His chest rose and fell quickly, his breath ragged from running. Behind him, the cave still shook with the sound of battle, growls and roars echoing like thunder in the stone. The glowing animal was still fighting the warden, buying him time, sacrificing itself to protect them. The boy glanced back once, his eyes wide with fear and guilt. He wanted to stay, to help, but he knew he was powerless. If he went back, he and the alien child would both be trapped. The only thing he could do now was run. The forest around him felt different, alive with danger. Every shadow between the trees seemed to move. Every sound made his heart jump. The alien child trembled against his chest, its breathing shallow, its lips whispering words in a language he did not know. The boy tightened his grip, whispering softly, "Hold on. I won't let them take you again." Branches whipped at his arms and face as he ran, the ground uneven and wet with morning dew. More glowing marks appeared on the trees, faint symbols leading deeper into the woods. The boy realized the animal had marked the path for him long before. It had planned for this, guiding him toward escape, but the rumble from the cave grew louder, and then came the sound that froze him in place. A roar, deeper and stronger than before, shaking the ground beneath his feet. The warden was free. The glowing animal's fight had ended, and now the monster was coming. The boy's legs shook, his throat dry, but he forced himself forward. He could not stop now. He had to protect the alien child no matter what. Each step felt heavier. Each breath burned his chest, but his will pushed him on. Behind him, branches snapped, the sound of something massive moving through the forest. He reached a stream that cut across the woods, its water rushing over smooth stones. The boy hesitated for only a moment, then waded through, the cold biting at his skin. The alien child coughed weakly, its arms tightening around his neck. The boy whispered again, "Don't let go, we're almost safe." On the other side of the stream, he noticed something strange. A cluster of stones arranged in a half circle, glowing faintly with the same symbols as the cave. The boy ran toward it, his instincts telling him it was important. As he stepped inside the circle, the air shifted. The forest sounds faded, replaced by a low hum that vibrated through his chest. The alien child stirred in his arms, its dim eyes flickering open. It reached out a trembling hand toward the stones, whispering a single word. The stones glowed brighter, light spreading through the carvings like fire through dry wood. The boy gasped as the circle came alive, a barrier of light rising around them. The roar of the warden came again, closer. The ground shook as its heavy form crashed through the forest, trees snapping in its path. The boy turned, his eyes wide as the towering figure emerged from the mist. Its red eyes burned with fury, claws dripping with dirt and blood. It saw them and roared, charging forward. But when the warden struck the glowing barrier, its claws met a wall of light. The ground cracked under the force, but the barrier held. The boy stumbled back, shielding the alien child as sparks of energy flew from the stones. The warden slammed against the shield again and again, each strike louder, angrier, but the light would not break. The alien child whispered again, its voice soft but clear this time. It spoke words that seemed older than the forest, words that carried power. The barrier flared brighter, pushing the warden back a few steps. The boy stared in awe, realizing the child was not just anyone. This was someone important, someone the warden had been ordered to guard forever. The boy's arms ached from carrying the child, but he refused to let go. He pressed his forehead against the child's and whispered, "I'll protect you no matter what." The child's dim eyes filled with tears, its weak lips trembling. For the first time, it answered him in broken human words. "Friend." The boy's throat tightened, his chest heavy. With emotion, he did not understand how or why this had happened, but he knew one thing. He could not abandon this child. The warden roared again, pacing outside the barrier like a beast denied its prey. It struck the shield over and over, but the stones glowed stronger each time the child whispered. The forest shook, but the barrier held. Finally, the warden stopped, its glowing eyes narrowing. It let out a sound like a growl mixed with laughter, then turned back toward the cave. The boy shivered, realizing this was not the end, only a pause. The warden would return, stronger, and it would not stop until the prisoner was captured again. The boy held the alien child tighter, his heart pounding. The glowing animal was gone, sacrificed in the cave, and now the responsibility was his. He looked at the glowing stones, then at the weak child in his arms. His life as a farmer's son was over. He had stepped into a world of secrets, a world of danger, and there was no turning back. As the morning sun finally broke through the mist, the boy whispered a promise. "We'll escape, together, no matter what comes." The boy sat inside the glowing circle of stones, his chest still rising and falling quickly. The alien child lay against him, weak and trembling, its small body shaking with every breath. Outside, the forest seemed quiet again, but he knew it was not safe. The warden had left for now, yet it would return, and when it did, the stones might not protect them. The boy looked down at the child, brushing dirt from its face. Up close, he noticed details he had missed in the darkness of the cave. The child's skin shimmered faintly, not like human skin, but like crystal lit from within. Its eyes, though tired, carried strange depth as if they had seen centuries of secrets. He felt a chill run down his spine, realizing this child was no ordinary alien. The child whispered again, its voice weak but clearer than before. It spoke, a word he could not understand, then another, until finally it said name. Leora. The boy's eyes widened, his lips repeating softly. Leora. Your name is Leora? The alien child nodded faintly, her eyes closing as though the effort had drained the last of her strength. The boy hugged her close, his thoughts spinning wildly. Why had the glowing animal chosen him, a farmer's son, to discover this? Why had it trusted him to find and free her? And why was a monster like the warden guarding her? As he sat in confusion, he noticed the symbols on the stones shifting faintly. They pulsed like a heartbeat, glowing in rhythm with Leora's breathing. He realized the stones and the child were connected. Her presence was what kept the barrier strong. The boy's mind raced back to the carvings in the cave, the ones that showed humans and glowing creatures standing with aliens side by side. Could it be that humans were meant to find her? That he was meant to? Before he could think further, movement stirred in the trees. The boy tensed, his arms tightening around Leora, but instead of the warden, a group of figures stepped out. They were human, hunters from the village, armed. With bows and spears, their faces showed shock as their eyes fell on him inside the glowing circle. "By the stars," one of them whispered. "What have you done, boy?" The hunters stepped closer, their weapons raised nervously. They saw the alien child and froze, fear flashing in their eyes. "Put it down," another hissed. "Do you know what that thing is?" The boy shook his head violently, holding Leora. "Closer. She's not a thing, she's alive and she needs help." The hunters exchanged uneasy glances. One older man stepped forward, his voice heavy with warning. "That child is dangerous, do you understand? If the council finds out, they'll come for all of us." The boy's heart pounded as he looked down at Leora. Her small hand clutched at his shirt, her dim eyes filled with silent fear. He could not abandon her now, not after everything. "No," he said firmly, surprising even himself. "I won't let them take her." The hunter's eyes hardened, torn between fear and loyalty. But before they could speak further, the ground trembled again. A distant roar echoed through the forest. Shaking the trees, the hunters paled, recognizing the sound. "The warden," one whispered, "it's coming." Panic spread through the group, but the boy stood his ground. He looked at the glowing stones, then at the alien child. If she was truly the one keeping the barrier strong, then maybe she was more than a prisoner. Maybe she was important. Maybe even the key to something bigger. The boy lifted his head, his young voice steady. "She has a name, Leora, and she's not our enemy." The hunters froze, staring at him in disbelief. No human boy had ever spoken with such defiance, not to grown men, but his words carried a strange weight, as if the glowing stones themselves agreed. At that moment, Leora stirred. Her weak lips moving, she whispered something in her language, her eyes glowing faintly. The stones flared brighter, the barrier humming stronger. One of the hunters gasped, dropping his weapon. She's one of them." "The royal kind," he stammered. "I've heard stories of their children." The boy's heart skipped. Royal? Was that why she was caged? Why she was guarded? If she truly came from a royal line, then her freedom meant war. The hunters realized. It too, their faces pale with dread. The boy tightened his arms around Leora, whispering into her ear, "I don't care who you are. You're safe with me." Her eyes met his, tears glistening, and for the first time she smiled faintly. That smile lit something deep in him, a bond stronger than fear. The hunters turned, panic rising as the roar came again, closer this time. Branches cracked, birds scattered, the forest itself seemed to flee. The warden was returning, angrier than before. The boy's pulse raced, his grip tightening on Leora. There was no more time for questions. The truth was clear. She was not just a prisoner, not just a forgotten child. She was someone who carried power, someone the aliens would kill to keep hidden. And now, by freeing her, he had changed everything. As the trees shook and the warden's shadow loomed closer, the boy stood tall inside, the glowing circle. He was no longer just a farmer's son who had followed an animal. He was the protector of Leora, and nothing would tear her away from him. The ground shook as the warden crashed through the forest, its massive form pushing aside trees like grass. The hunters stumbled back in fear, their weapons shaking in their hands. The boy tightened his arms around Leora, standing firm inside. The glowing circle. His heart thundered in his chest, but his eyes burned with determination. The warden's red gaze locked on them, glowing with fury. It raised its claws, ready to strike. But the stones around the circle flared brighter. The barrier rippled like water, humming with power as if answering Leora's heartbeat. The beast snarled and struck, its claws crashing against the shield of light. The hunters fell to their knees, covering their ears from the sound. But the boy stood firm, whispering to Leora, "Don't give up, you're safe with me." Her small hands trembled, her weak voice whispering ancient words. The stones blazed brighter, the barrier pulsing stronger, forcing the warden back step by step. The boy felt the energy flow through, the circle through her and into him. For a brief moment, he felt connected to something larger, something beyond human understanding. The carvings he had seen in the cave, the glowing animal that led him here, all of it began to make sense. This was no accident, no random morning. He had been chosen. The hunters, still frozen in shock, watched. As the boy held his ground, one of them whispered, "He's only a child. How is this possible?" Another answered, "It's not him alone. It's her. She's not just anyone." The boy ignored them, his focus only on the alien child in his arms. Leora's eyes glowed brighter, tears streaming down her face. She looked up at him and spoke in broken human words. "Together." The boy nodded, his throat tight. "Together," he whispered back. Their bond flared like fire, and the stones exploded with light. The warden let out a roar of rage, stumbling backward as the light pierced its armored skin. It clawed and slashed, but the barrier held. The energy spread through the clearing, shaking the trees and burning symbols into the earth. With one final cry, the warden turned and retreated into the forest shadows, its red eyes fading into the mist. Silence filled the air, heavy and strange. The hunters slowly stood, their faces pale, their eyes wide with awe and fear. One dropped his spear, whispering, "The council will hear of this. They will come for us." The boy turned to them, holding Leora protectively, his young voice steady. "Then let them come," he said. "She is under my protection now." The hunters exchanged uneasy glances, torn between fear of the council and the strange courage they saw in him. For a moment no one spoke, only the sound of the forest returning, birds, wind, and the faint hum of the stones. The boy lowered himself to the ground, letting Leora rest more comfortably. She leaned against him, her eyes heavy with exhaustion but filled with trust. The boy looked at her, remembering the way she had called him friend, remembering the glowing animal that had sacrificed itself. He realized his life was no longer his own. It now belonged to something greater. His father would not understand. The village would not accept this, but none of that mattered anymore. He had seen the truth. The aliens were not all enemies, not all monsters. Some were prisoners, some were hunted, and some, like Leora, carried hope. The hunters finally lowered their weapons. One of them spoke, his voice low. "Boy, if she is who I think she is, the whole galaxy will want her." The boy met his gaze without fear. "Then the galaxy will have to fight me first." The words felt strange on his tongue, but they burned with conviction. For the first time in his young life, he was not just speaking as a farmer's son, he was speaking as someone chosen, someone who stood between two worlds. The hunters slowly backed away, their fear too strong to stay. They disappeared into the forest, leaving the boy and Leora alone. The morning sun broke through the mist at last, its light touching the stones. The barrier faded slowly, the glow dimming, but its warmth remained. The boy helped Leora to her feet. She leaned on him, weak but alive, her small hand gripping his tightly. He smiled faintly, whispering, "We'll find a safe place, I promise." Her eyes shone with quiet trust, and she nodded, whispering again. Together, as they walked away from the glowing circle, the boy glanced back one last time. The stones stood silent now, their light gone. But he knew they would always be there. Watching, waiting, a reminder of the choice he had made. He had stepped into the unknown, and nothing could undo it. Far above, the sky shimmered faintly as if watching too. Somewhere out there, the council would soon hear of what had happened. Somewhere out there, the warden licked its wounds and prepared to return. And somewhere deep inside, the boy felt a fire that could not be put out. He had started this morning as a farmer's son, chasing after a strange animal. Now he was the protector of a royal child, the only human trusted with her life. The path ahead was full of danger, but also hope, because the bond between them was real, and that bond would change not just his life, but perhaps the future of both their worlds. As the forest swallowed them in its green embrace, the boy whispered a final vow under his breath. "This is not the end. This is only the beginning."